What's up, Internet? This is Rambling Josh, and today I want to talk about something a little bit different. Specifically, you can see that we are here in Starcraft 2, and that is because I want to talk about a mod that was recently released. Specifically, we are looking at Axiom, a mod by YouTube / Starcraft / PC gaming / whatever personality Total Biscuit. And the purpose of this mod, as we can see in the tooltip here, is that Axiom is a simple mod designed to make the competitive StarCraft 2 experience more accessible. And I guess a more in-depth explanation of what it is basically the idea is to take high-level StarCraft 2, professional StarCraft 2, which is something that is purposely designed to be very hard to execute, something that most people will never be able to do, and take that level of play and make it something that's a little bit more accessible for people who maybe like to watch StarCraft 2 or whatever, but don't have the time or the energy or the inclination or whatever to actually get good at the game. And so I thought it'd be interesting to look at this because the two things are almost kind of diametrically opposed. High-level StarCraft 2 is impressive because it's not inaccessible, but because it's hard. So taking that and trying to make it into something that anybody can do is an interesting and arguably useful thing to be able to do. So because this is in particular something that is, this mod is something that's particularly intensive on the UI UX changes. That's user experience, user interface, for those who don't know those acronyms. And I consider myself somewhat of a UI UX guy. So I thought it'd be interesting to look at the choices that they made in making this mod and not necessarily critique it, but kind of analyze it and just kind of give my take on the decisions that they've made. So beforehand, I've already messed around a little bit with each of the three races in this mod, so I have a bit of an idea how it works already, so we're just kind of gonna go through all the various little elements and do it all live. So we're just gonna play against an AI because they don't fight back, and I'm not interested in fighting people while I'm talking. Well, and we'll play Terran just because they're the simplest race, I guess. And I guess just as a forward, I would say that for what it's worth, I don't think I technically would qualify as being the target demographic of this game or this mod, because I am someone who's played StarCraft 2 before. I've played on the ladder a little bit, so just for what that's worth. So anyways, the first thing that we notice about this is that the bottom of the screen, this whole panel here, is completely different. You can see that we have icons for all of the buildings that are available to the Terran race down here at the bottom, right from the get-go. Obviously we can't build them all, but they're all here. And we have these three tabs here. We have the training tab, and we have the upgrade tab. And for what it's worth, there's a whole bunch of whatever the heck is going on over here, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So one of the main things that this mod does is it takes the concept of building your base and kind of what you would call macro and simplifies it a lot. So if I just click on one of those, I can just place them and an SUV will automatically come off the mineral line and build it for me. You'll also notice that SCVs are automatically building as I'm just sitting here. So these are examples of how it simplifies things. Also, this is a supply depot, but it doesn't actually give me any supply. Instead, it's basically just a wall. And instead, if I build a barracks, the barracks itself will actually give me supply. And the idea behind this being that I guess they don't the idea of managing your supply is not. It's a little bit complicated for people, I guess. So I guess before I get into anything too much, this bar is quite an interesting decision to me because, for one thing, like the biggest thing about this is that if you don't have a lot of experience playing StarCraft 2, and especially if you don't know much about high-level play, this is a lot to digest. There's just so much stuff here that even as someone, like I said, who does know StarCraft 2 decently well, there's just a lot of stuff. And when it comes to designing something like UI, one of the main things that you have to consider, especially depending a little bit on your demographic and stuff like that as well, is the concept of how much attention someone has to spare and how many things they can spend that attention on. There's a better term for it, but I can't think of what it is off the top of my head. So basically what I'm trying to say here is there's so much stuff down here that if you don't know what you're doing going into it, I feel like this is all really, really, really overwhelming.
That's fine.
And this is just one pane of this. You have to manage your buildings, you have to manage your units, and you have to manage your upgrades as well. And it goes a little bit beyond the simple concept of like paying attention to all these icons and learning all these icons and what they are and what they mean and all that as well. In addition to that, you have this idea that like everything is centralized down in this bar, and it's decoupled, purposely decoupled from each individual building. So in a normal game of StarCraft 2, if you want to build Marines, you'd want to click on your barracks, and you'd have to press the A button to queue up a Marine. So here instead, you just click this Y button a whole bunch of times, and that queues up some Marines. And that seems like it's easier, and ultimately it is. So I guess the fact that it is in fact easier means that this bar has potentially ultimately succeeded in its goal, which is a good thing. But there's also the fact that by centralizing everything here, you're creating this like separation from the buildings themselves. And the reason that this is problematic is because the way people think about things is they like to compartmentalize them, right? Things are a lot easier to process when they're in small chunks.
By the numbers, boys.
So if you think about something like, let's say, a factory. So you need a factory to build Hellions or siege tanks or all the other things that come out of a factory. But if you're playing this game, it's like, okay, where's the Hellion? Let's see, I can't even find it. That's a Hellbat. It's a Cyclone. It's a Thor. There it is, Hellion. So it says requires factory. So if you're like, okay, why is the Hellion icon gray? Then you're like, okay, it requires a factory, so I gotta build a factory. That makes sense.
Armed and ready.
But now let's imagine that someone is attacking your base and they destroy your factory. And then you're looking at your little pane here and you're like, oh, why is this suddenly gray? And I can imagine the situation where, because everything is centralized on this pane, and you don't have that, you don't build that same mental attachment between the Hellion and the factory quite the same way. And because you're not having to click on the factory every time you want to build Hellions, that can create some amount of confusion. It's probably fairly minimal, but it's kind of like, if you're like in the heat of the moment, so to speak, it makes things kind of confusing. And confusing is like the opposite of the stated goal here, right? Just kind of keep things going. We'll keep things going while I'm talking here. And I guess this kind of brings us to the next point. Not what I'm talking about, but what I'm doing here. One of the other decisions that they made in this game is to change up the economy. So you can see that there's like a little +2 or +3 underneath my mineral count here, and same for the gas, and that's indicating my overall, I guess, income versus outcome kind of idea. So rather than, I can't even like click on a marine in here. Let's see. So marines cost 50 minerals, right? And in the base game, you click it and you instantly spend those 50 minerals, even if you are not currently building a marine. Each of these marines would cost 50 minerals, even though you're only building one at a time. So that's kind of the thing that they want to avoid with this, I guess, is the idea that it's pretty easy for newer players to get wrapped up in this idea of economy, where they're spending all of their resources for something that they're not benefiting from right away, whereas you're much better suited to, say, like, diversify so that you have a whole bunch of places that you're spending your minerals on, and you're getting units out of them much faster, rather than sitting on potentially hundreds of minerals that are not doing anything while your units are in the queue. So there's that aspect of the economy in this game that is potentially confusing for new players. And so instead what they've done is that you have, I guess they call it a pay-as-you-go system, where I'm not super clear on how it works, which is kind of concerning to begin with, because I would think that I'm someone that would be able to understand this kind of thing. But basically, it's if a marine costs 50 minerals, you're basically paying those 50 minerals out over the course of the production of that unit. Am I even going to be able to beat this stuff?
Sure thing. Will do.
That was a lot more stuff than I expected. Where was I? So yeah, so the idea is you're basically like taking out a loan, so to speak, where you're saying, I'm going to build this thing and I will pay for it over the course of the production, and that's where this income comes in. So you've got the income of how many minerals you're mining versus the expenditure of the units and the buildings and all that stuff that you're currently building.
Add-on complete.
And this is done with the purpose of simplifying things, but I feel like it actually just makes it more complicated, if I'm being honest.
Mineral field depleted.
Because the problem here is that you're taking something finite. That's not really the right word. You're taking something. I can't think of the word. You're taking the concept of spending your resources and you're making it abstract. So, and I think there's a lot of potential balance concerns here as well, but that's kind of neither here nor there. But basically, the idea of what I'm trying to get at here is that
By the numbers, boys.
I feel like if a new player is clicking on a barracks and they're like, oh, this marine costs 50 minerals to cost. You click the button and you are automatically deducted 50 minerals. That's a pretty concrete concept. That's not something that's hard to grasp. It's very straightforward. I'm supply blocked. I need to build more stuff. Anyways, it's a pretty simple concept that pretty much anyone can understand the idea of spend money to get thing. Admittedly, I can understand why the tying up your resources concept might be a little bit more complicated, but making it this abstract thing is really, honestly, kind of confusing. Because I look at my resources and, well, I guess before I get too far into that, I should kind of talk a little bit about what happens if you overspend. Ooh, I like attacking over here.
Are you ready for this? You gonna give me orders?
I don't even have siege mode, do I? No, I've got siege mode. Am I gonna be able to hold this off?
I'm in deep. Ready to roll out.
I don't think so. That's unfortunate.
Mineral field depleted.
I guess then if I'm gonna lose while I'm talking here, then I might as well just get into another game, and I guess I'll show off Protoss this time. So anyways, what I was trying to get at there is it's just a little bit difficult to understand this concept of money in, money out when you can't see the discrete, like, I'm spending my money here. It's just your money is constantly going out, and it's a little bit hard to understand understand like where it's going, and it's a little bit hard also to quantify your money coming in when it's constantly being offset, so to speak. So let me show you. This is a Nexus that I obviously can't afford, and yet it's building. And I guess that's kind of the point, is that they want to not overload the player with, you know, you can't afford this right now, so you're screwed kind of idea. But if you start spending more than you can afford kind of idea, then production slows down a lot. You can kind of see if you look at this that rather than the numbers increasing constantly, there's like jitters and halts in this and such. And so basically what this ends up meaning is that your total number of resources is actually almost irrelevant, because if your actual like income amount, like your number coming in per second or whatever that's measuring, is in the negative, then you're essentially not really doing much at all. Like, if you have a big bank that doesn't really do a whole lot for you, the only thing that really matters is staying in the positive. So that alone creates some really odd side effects to the way that the economy in this game works, and like not even thinking about balance. Like, the fact that I can just sit here and make these 4 gateways is kind of strange, right? Like, I'm not losing any minerals. I definitely did not have the minerals to afford to make what's this, 600 minerals worth of gateways, and yet somehow with less than 600 minerals I can just do it, because that's the way that income works, I guess. And to me, like, I just look at that and I'm like, how is a player supposed to understand how this works? I don't understand how this works. How? The CPUs were nowhere near this aggressive when I was playing on my own before. Oh well. You know what? You can attack that Nexus all you want. I really don't care. Now see, like, all of a sudden I'm at -7, -5. Like, I don't understand why I'm suddenly losing all these resources.
By your will.
And I feel like if I can't understand it as someone who, like I said, does know how like at least the base game of StarCraft 2 works, then I don't know how you can expect a new player to understand it. Can I not hold position these zealots? Oh, it's on S instead of A. That's kind of weird.
Justice be done. I've like completely my like desire to
to fend off these Zerglings has like completely sidetracked me here. So we talked about the issues with the economy. We talked about the issues with the managing this production bar, and we even really gotten into the idea of like, oh, you have to switch between these tabs to like do anything. I mean, obviously it creates a lot, like the balance and kind of like the way build orders and stuff work in this game are very clearly very different from the base game of StarCraft 2. And I guess that kind of raises its own concerns in a way, because it's like this mod stands in a very odd place where it's like it's trying to be StarCraft 2 without being StarCraft 2. It's not trying to train people to be playing StarCraft 2. That's very clearly something that has been stated as not a goal for this game, this mod. See, like, I don't know where my minerals going right now. I don't get it. But it's like, if this game is going to be so different from the base game that is StarCraft 2, then it's like, why does it exist? Who is this game for? It's not for people who know StarCraft 2 already. It's not for, like, it seems like if this is for people who know nothing about playing the game, then I feel like this is a much more confusing experience for them. So like, I don't understand how it could potentially be for that demographic. Just none of this makes sense to me. I like can't play this game with hotkeys because
We stand as one.
nothing is the way I think that it's supposed to work. And I guess that kind of goes towards what I was saying as well, right? Like, if you're trying to get the StarCraft 2 experience, this is so not it. Like, I guess if you put time into learning how to play this specific mod, then there's... Holy jeez, that's a lot of stuff. Then it's like, there's a lot of stuff here.
Cold is the void. State thy bidding.
I think I am fine in this encounter. These stalkers are saving me. Oh, there's more stuff.
Cold is the void. I am here in the shadows.
Reinforcements.
Veraku. I am the heart of darkness.
What am I doing? I have warp gates now, don't I? No, it's not done yet.
You require my skills. State thy bidding.
Jeez, this AI is so aggressive. Okay, there's the button.
My life for hire.
Very well.
Oh, I don't remember where I was again. Where's this mothership core is being built? There. I guess another potential criticism here is just the fact that things like you can't patrol in this game at all. That's like just not a thing that you can do. So it's like straight up removing functionality. And I guess, wait, why can I? That's weird.
My
See,
meditation is over. My
you
life
need
for
the
hire.
raw amount of resources in your bank to build units, but not buildings. That's so weird! Why do units have a different rule than buildings? Like, obviously it's for balance purposes, but like, that makes no sense. That's so like, so weird. It's so inconsistent.
Reinforcing sideways.
I guess I can just point out a couple of other random things here. Not enough minerals. I really need more probes. It hasn't been building probes this whole time. So if I click on a spellcaster, you can see that it just kind of adds in the...
I am the voice of the eclipse.
Man, things have... They adjusted the health that units have in this mod, so I like can't do anything. I need to...
My life for hire.
I didn't even realize that happened. I need to start spending some gas. Twilight Council.
You must place that in a power field.
Is that building? Yes, okay. Not enough minerals. Can I build a sentry, please? Please? Okay. So, like I was saying, spellcasters, it just kind of inserts the icons into this main bar down here, so that just kind of takes the clutter and just makes it all the worse. And additionally, there's this concept in this mod of global rallying positions. So I can say like gateways,
I return to
robotics and starports rally here, and all buildings of that same kind will go to the same place. So that's cool. Oh god, I'm gonna lose, aren't I? I'm very not ready for this. Probably.
mineral field depleted.
Requirements.
Mineral field depleted. My life for hire.
What I really need is more gateways, but I like can't afford them.
For now, it shall be as you say.
Yeah, okay, we've lost this. So you have these extra hot rally points that you can set, but they're using the F keys, and these are using the F keys. So it's like, okay, is the core experience of this game really designed around the idea that players who've never played StarCraft before are going to memorize how to use keys like A through Z and also F1 through F8? And I think that on its own really summarizes my issues with this mod in general. The stated purpose is to simplify the game, and I feel like it's actually made it a lot more complicated. If you can get used to how to play this mod, I think it's very powerful, and if you know what you're doing, then you can potentially increase kind of like your ability to play this StarCraft 2 pretty far, but you're really, like, very literally learning an entirely different game. It's a game that is very much less refined. It makes it a lot more difficult. I think it's a lot harder game to actually learn than base StarCraft 2. It doesn't have quite the same level of finesse, which I guess is to be expected from a mod designed by one person instead of a team of people. But I think it's really interesting still, and I'm glad that it exists. I hope that it has an audience, because I'd like to see what people can do with this one day. Because in theory, if people can use this to simplify the part of the games that are kind of monotonous and take away from their ability to do things in other parts of the game, then you can potentially use something like this to make your your micro like super insane, so you can do awesome maneuvers with your army and all this kind of stuff. So I'm interested to see that kind of thing one day, but I think that, if I'm being frank, that I think this mod fails at its ultimate goal. What has been made is something really interesting, but I don't think it at all hits the demographics that it's trying to hit. And saying that this mod is not for Group Y, Group Z, Group X, like, it doesn't excuse anything about it. Like, that's kind of getting towards some of the stuff that I'm seeing on Twitter, I guess. But I think there's a lot of criticisms to be made about this mod. But I'm just like rambling at this point, which I guess, hey, that's what I do. But anyways, I think I've said enough at this point. I am going to do this again because I want to beat this AI now that they're actually like fighting back. They weren't doing that before, and I'm not sure why. But yeah, I'm gonna end this video there. So hopefully this was entertaining and informative for you. I feel like I rambled a lot and didn't say much about the points that I actually wanted to hit, but that's just life. Catch you later.